Well, I have a good recipe today, and it's actually a viewer request. In fact, quite a lot of people have asked me for this recipe, including you, Vicky. Yes, I know you've asked me for the recipe for my monster Yorkshire puddings. Yeah, I think they're a firm favourite with a lot of households, aren't they? So although this is not actually a dish as such, I do think this is something that you can take into your kitchen time and time again and enjoy. So what's the secret to good Yorkshire puddings? Well, you've got to obviously get the right ingredients. And another thing, the oven. Now mine's been heating away there quite nicely for around about 20 minutes. And that is what's particularly important, is to make sure that you get your oven at the correct temperature. So often when people say to me a recipe hasn't worked, particularly with things like cakes or soufflés or something of that nature, you find that the oven is actually not preheated long enough. I've even noticed people who just switch their oven on, they rustle something up and they've not waited long enough. So that is particularly important. You will have an oven light, and when it goes off, that means it's reached the correct temperature. Mine's set at 220 degrees, and that's particularly important. The next thing we're going to look at is the tin. Now, I use a muffin tin for my Yorkshire puddings, but you can use just about anything. And you'll just see that I've put a tiny little drizzle of oil there, just in the bottom. Not loads, just a little bit. And also the tin is fairly new. Unfortunately, you know, Yorkshire pudding tins in particular, they do take a little bit of a bashing, don't they? And, you know, they start to lose their non-stick quality. So, you know, try and make sure that if yours is old and your Yorkshire puddings are sticking, try a new muffin tin. You can get them now from like hardware stores and supermarkets. So cheap. They really have come down in price, I think, with everybody wanting to bake and cook. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick this now in the oven ready, just to start getting that nice and hot. And again, quickly shut that door. Right, now to actually look at the actual mixture. I've got a nice big bowl, and I've got my sieve, pop that on top, and I've got in there around about 220 grams of plain flour. So in that goes. And I'm going to give a good grinding of salt, and I'm just going to sieve that. This just makes sure as well that you've got no bits. I mean, the camera probably won't pick that up very well, but there are just a couple of little bits in the bottom there, which you don't want in your Yorkshire puddings. Now, the other secret is, you'll see here I've got some eggs. Now I've got 3 whole eggs and I've got 1 egg white. And I'm convinced that that is the reason why the Yorkshire puddings of mine work. So I've also got here as well 300 mils of milk. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to put the egg white in and the 3 whole eggs in. And I'm just going to help that along by breaking it up. Just going to mix that into the milk. There we go. And then with nothing flashy, but just a hand whisk, I'm just going to add this in and mix away. Now, Yorkshire puddings, I think, are fantastic. And I know people do like them with roast beef. Oh, who doesn't? One of my favourite Sunday roasts. But I actually have this Yorkshire pudding on standby for a number of things, really, because you know, my family does like them. So I'll do them with things like chicken. I do them with lamb, with shepherd's pie, anything like that, really. I think for me, you know, I grew up struggling for money and for food, and this was a great way, just like dumplings used to be used, to fill out and extend a meal. When you've got some hungry mouths to feed, you have to be really inventive. I also like making mini Yorkshire puddings as canapes. I've got some, although that's a big muffin tin, I've got some smaller ones, some little tiny ones that I've got. And I just make these tiny little Yorkshire puddings. And then inside, I actually get some steak. I just fry it off gently and I slice it thinly, curl it round and put a blob of like hot horseradish sauce as a canapé. It's so delicious. And talking of horseradish and mustard, you can actually add a blob of that into your mix if you like as well. That's sometimes quite nice, but I'm just keeping it real today, folks. So you just want to make sure you just put a bit of elbow grease in there, just to make sure that you've got no lumps. Now that mix looks really nice and smooth. It's like the consistency, I suppose, of like paint. It's the best way to describe it, I suppose. Tastes a lot nicer. So we're just going to pop this back into this jug because me trying to put this into the muffin tin, I'm going to make a mess. At least with a jug, it's like a little helping hand. So in that goes. And now I'm going to take my tin, which is heated a little bit, out of the oven. I'm going to place it on here and I'm actually going to put the mix in fairly quickly and then bang it back in the oven for around about 20 to 25 minutes. Right, before they decide to make their great escape out of the oven. Ooh. Oh, look at them. I made some literally about a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say, they were that excitable. My kids even said, "Mum, they're making their great escape," and they were literally overflowing. So I'm glad these have slightly behaved themselves. So all you're going to do is just literally take them out. Can you see how easy they've just come out of the muffin tin? No sticking, behaving themselves. And you know the best bit about it? If you do have any spare, you can be a little bit naughty like me and put some jam in or even golden syrup.